So welcome everyone. Just grab a drink, whatever you're drinking. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that means that it is cocktail time in every time zone. Grab a water, grab coffee. This is going to be an amazing conversation with two people that I hold very dear to me in the industry. And so you just can imagine that you're in my house and we're sitting on my blue velvet couch and we are chatting it up. We're going to talk about esports and all the things. And I'm super, super excited. Welcome to my fireside chat with Freya Marquardt. Did I say the last name correctly?
Close enough. Marquardt. It's a
Marquardt.
weird German last name. Gotta love him.
No, it's not a weird. It's unique and brilliant. Freya Marquardt and Ahman Green. I'm going
Weird
with
is
the
a good
whole
thing in
full
my book.
governments. Um, and so Freya is one of the kindest humans that I've encountered in the industry, and is currently vice president of marketing at Vite Kitchens.
Yep.
Rocket League player at Torrent, and just like dope human. And so I'm going to start you both off with this question: what games sparked joy for 15-year-old you, and which games are sparking joy for you right now?
Ooh.
I mean, for me, like when I was 15, just trying to think back to what even I was doing around that time, but it was definitely a lot of GameCube, which if I pulled back that curtain, you would actually see the GameCube still sitting over there. Need for Speed Underground. I always loved racing games, anything with cars. Go figure, I'm playing Rocket League now.
And so
But
is that what's
otherwise, I
bringing you
think
joy right now?
yeah, Rocket League is absolutely bringing me a lot of joy right now. And then I've also found I'm really enjoying Halo Infinite, which I was never really like a big Halo player back when that came out, but
Mhm.
it's been a nice little fun adventure to go off and do that alongside Rocket League instead of just like grinding out one game constantly.
Mhm.
Um, Also, getting a lot of joy out of Minecraft. Uh, it's just
Awesome.
it's a lot of fun.
Well, Ahman Green, basically my brother from another mother. So I
Yep.
get to call him full government. You all may know him as a former pro football player, Green Bay Packers fans in the house. And he is also currently the head esports coach at Lakeland University. So, Ahman Green, same question for you. What games sparked joy for 15-year-old Ahman, and what
Uh,
games are sparking joy for you right now?
yeah. So hello to you, Freya, and
Hey.
Hey,
Maloney. Hello.
been a while.
I love these questions like this. So got me going back in time in my head. And the 15-year-old of mine, I was a junior in high school, and
Mhm.
we were playing. I say the game that got me delight was playing Tecmo Bowl against my friends right after school, and they would get mad at me for beating them, and then
Mm.
since I was beating both of them, they would fight each other instead of fight me because they were trying to figure, oh, he's cheating. He's before hacking was hacking. He's hacking the game. He's cheating. There's no way.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah, and then I say now what I'm
Mhm.
doing is a lot of Madden, and a lot of I'm right with Freya. If Halo Infinite, I was just on it before the stream started. I was in the weapons drills doing some shoot
Nice.
gallery stuff. So
We got to
See,
play together.
yeah,
you do.
yes,
And
yes,
and
exactly.
maybe you all teach me. You all practicing in there
Yep,
doing the
Oh, for
drills.
sure.
I love that.
100%.
So taking me back to 15 years is taking us all the way back to the 80s. Oh, and so it's the shore, the Jersey Shore playing at arcades. And actually, funny enough, and Miss
Yes.
Pac-Man or Pac-Man. And the funny enough is that I just came back from LA yesterday, like actually this morning at 1 a.m. and got to go to my head is scattered. Where was I? Oh my gosh, I was at Riot, and they have a whole arcade, and they have these old arcades that they shipped in from all over the place. So it was really kind of like a very nostalgic moment for me. And the reason I wanted to take us back there is that this is professional boot camp, and we have hopefully people in the audience that are ranges of ages, right? And so
Yeah.
maybe some people that are teenagers or right in college right now, and then we have people that have been in the industry and have been working in the industry for a while or have been working in esports for a while. And so I kind of want to let them know that 15-year-old you, 14-year-old you can still be present in current day you when you get to this place, right? And that it's quite a journey. And so I'd love to hear each of you share with everyone your journey to esports, to like where you are now. So a little bit around, just share with us how you got to be doing what it is that you do today. Anyone can start us off.
All right. I'll start it off.
Mhm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll say so. Yeah, for me, it started in terms of where I'm at now in this chair, talking and meeting you beautiful people. Um, it was basically a few years after. So I retired in 2009 and kind of took a year off to reconnect with the family and get my kids going, football, baseball, basketball, being that dad, driving everybody to the games and to the events and stuff like that and being present. And so did about a year and a half of that. And then just started. Then a year and a half, my wife's like, all right, now you got to go. You got to get out the house again. You're here way too much now. And you are a little bossy. And I'm like, what? Oh my God.
Bossy. Imagine that.
I was like, what? So I was like, all right. So, but I was already thinking, okay, where's my next step? Like, yeah, she's right. Jokingly, you can't be sitting around the house all day and being dad or husband. So I started just looking at the things that kind of drew me some interest while I was playing, which was coaching and broadcasting. Talking about the game, Monday Night Football-esque. And then I start looking up all the NFL. They had at that time really good programs for former players to get basically like a crash course. So I basically went to every event, went to all those little breakout sessions like this, talking about what your next step's going to be after pro ball. Because when you retire, I retired, I was 34 years old, and that's
life ahead of you.
Yeah, and it's like I got a lot of living to do, and I think a lot of people don't really see that with professional athletes in general. They're able to play 20 plus years in their career. Obviously, financially they should be okay, but that time is now saying, hey, I still got a lot of work time in my life, and so what basically make it speed this thing up a little bit. I went to finally the broadcasting boot camp. I did one for the NFL, and I did one for a friend of mine who's actually, I'm here in Vegas right now, Greg Zion, and he did a boot camp for content creators, for streamers. And I knew there, was neck and neck, so I went to both. And then from then on, I was like, in terms of when casting, I say the passion for casting came out, being that I was a little quiet, shy little boy that didn't want to barely do anything, just go play my Legend of Zelda and be happy. It got me talking, it's got me because I'm talking about something I love. I love video games. I love the culture of it now and where it's going, and the people involved like us that is going to be able to set those guidelines and do, be a part of that. So it was just another passion, fortunate for me, along with football, was able to get into. And my brothers, when they found out I got hired at Lakeland University, I think it was the day of, they called me that morning, dude, that's like the perfect job for you, man. That's all you did as a kid. You played video games. I'm like, yeah. I say, so I was able to pass, get there, and just from that passion of drive and where I wanted to go. Once I figured out, okay, the shoutcasting thing is pretty cool. And then seeing things in leadership in terms of coaching in areas that were missing sometimes in players that you see playing online or playing in a tournament, a big tournament, and their antics, their showmanship or their sportsmanship. Being digital citizens, making sure that they respect the game that they're playing, they respect the players that they're playing with and against, and try to understand. And I saw little events would happen, and the one main event that kind of sparked me up is like, all right, I think esports needs coaching. I was watching a X Games Halo tournament. The X Games carried the Halo tournament around the U.S. and the world, and I saw it was two teams. I think it was Optic Gaming, where they had Lethal, was at that time and still today pretty one of top 10 Halo pros out there, and he had gotten an argument with one of his teammates during the tournament and jump from his team to the other team that played against his team. And I'm sitting there like,
what in the world?
From the world I just came from, I can't go and be like, hey, coach, I'm mad at you. You didn't give me the ball enough. Hi, I'm going to go play for the other team right now. And so I was like, and that kind of was my aha moment. It's like, there it is right there.
Yeah, I love that.
Not that I'm going to be the cure-all to save all, but at least I could go somewhere, get connected with the right people to help, bring over my traditional sport background and understanding how that can coincide with managing, coaching esports players to get them to understand the accountability, the dedication, and the structure you got to have. Being a college player, pro player, amateur, trying to get in, path to pro to try to get in, you just got to have those qualities about you and know that stuff. And then do it when that time comes up.
Yeah. What I appreciate about hearing about your journey, one is, and I hear this a lot, just about how traditional sports and esports are connected, right, for you, and connected for you as a human being, but also then how you took that connection like all the way through, right? It's like all of that connective stuff. And I think that's really important for people to, when they hear both of your stories of just how you got to esports, is all the things that are connections that kind of got you here. And kind of like how you don't lose yourself in it, right? Like it's not, you're always the constant, right? And how do you keep that thing there? So, and boot camp seems to be a constant in your life, right? You always like, you're in this boot camp, you went to that streamer boot camp, and I know there was a lot of boot camps in the when you were playing ball. So I think that's another one. Freya, tell us, and I see a kitty in the back, tell us your journey to esports. We welcome all the pets here.
Oh yeah, I've got 2 cats. They're both crawling around my desk, so you'll probably see them pop in and out of frame. But my journey with esports has been a little weird. I honestly didn't even know esports existed really until I was in college, and at that point, it wasn't even anything I'd been thinking about. But that college background did kind of come into play later, because at the time I was going to school for theater. I wanted to be an actor, I thought, at the time at least. And so, I was getting a lot of experience then on the production side of things, learning, lighting design, set design, sound design, improv ability, just pretty much anything within the theater space, from design to directing to running props across stage. So you name it, I've done it. And that just kind of has always fed into my want to do something creative, and want to do something in the entertainment industry. And it kind of just didn't really click until years later, when I was just kind of off doing like construction work or whatever it was I was doing at the time, of just like, hey, there's this thing called Twitch out there. I could go and be a streamer, and I could still kind of do all the production things that I want to be doing, but as a thing on the side, just solo. And so I just kind of kept that going as a hobby for myself, and eventually ended up coming across esports through another streamer, friend of mine, Top Gun 7. She's a great Rocket League streamer. If y'all haven't seen her, go check her out. But she actually asked me to team up with her for this tournament that was going on, and it was the first women's tournament in Rocket League that any of us had ever heard of. And I was like, you know what, I don't actually know how I'll stack up to any of these other players. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good between me and my friends, but I don't know what it'll actually be like in a competitive scene. And we ended up actually like getting to top 5, I want to say it was, and like it was a great feeling. And I just ended up realizing from there that this could be something where I could continue to play as a competitor, and not just kind of like be on the sidelines viewing it. And through that, women's carball championship ended up starting out soon after. The team that I went into qualifiers with didn't quite qualify for the first season, unfortunately, but I still loved everything that was going on there, and I could see that there was a massive need in the back end of it for people to step up and volunteer and actually fill some of these positions, because especially back then, there wasn't any funding involved with women's carball championship. It was this group called Crimson Wings, was just kind of running it all out of their own pocket. And so I was just kind of looking around, seeing what things they needed. And I started just being like, oh, hey, you guys don't have a banner for your Twitter. Here, I'll make you a banner, or just whatever, just kind of like seeing where their need was, and then just filling it by just being like, hey, here's this thing that I've noticed that you need. And so that was kind of how I got scooped up into doing the admin work on the back end of that. And I started kind of just helping lead the women's carball championship. Ended up then, when season 2 came around, trying to be a competitor again. Started up this little organization called Venus Vixens, which was an all women's group of gamers, just going out there trying to make a name for ourselves. And so we had the Rocket League team at the time. We also had a PUBG team for a little bit, and then from between then and now, we ended up getting picked up by Torrent, which was Alpine at the time that they picked us up. So there's been a lot of changes through all of that, but it's been an interesting journey, just going from like being someone who didn't really know esports was a thing to now being like, oh, hey, yeah, esports is something that I can get into. And cool thing about it is, like, I'm kind of old for the scene, honestly. Like as far as competitors go, like you don't see a lot of competitors, especially in Rocket League in their 30s. Like there's a lot
Mhm.
of like 15-year-old prodigies in that game who are just absolutely bonkers. And I still think it's just really cool to be doing it at this point in my life and just being able to say, yeah, it doesn't really matter what age you are or where you're coming from in your background. Like esports is kind of a great equalizer where you can just like go in and be on an equal playing field with anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
I do think that's awesome, and I love that. If time frame wise, when was it that you entered that first Rocket League tournament? Like what year? Around what year was that? Because I think it's
That
important for people to.
was that was 2019. So
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I haven't really been in esports all that long, to be honest,
Mhm.
and I've just kind of been doing what I can between there. Oh, and then like also with Vite Ramen, weirdly enough, my day job, Vite Ramen, Vite Kitchens, whatever. Like, we're all gamers there. It's literally just a company full of gamers, which I think is great. A lot of them have an Overwatch background in that, and we also ended up running the Overwatch Empowerment Cup recently, which was an event for um, pretty much just like Um, all genders that
Mhm.
have been kind of persecuted in some way. So, like non-binary, transgender women,
Mhm.
just all marginalized genders were able to compete in that, and it was a massive event with like over 60 teams. Like, there's a lot more of us out there than I think people realize, and
Yeah.
it's great to be able to have these events and kind of start bringing the spotlight to some of these players.
And that's, I mean, like literally that's what we're all about, right? And so I do feel like,
Hmm.
we've tried to bring just a collection of people together over the weekend that are about that, right? Like about elevating and amplifying women in the space. I
Hmm.
am elevating and amplifying other genders that the system historically has not made space for. So to hear you say, right, there's a ton of us out there, it's kind of like, what are the reasons that we're not here? So I'm going to ask this question, which is just around um, what is one of the biggest issues that you're currently facing as an esports professional? So like not necessarily like the huge picture, and it may be the huge picture.
Yeah.
And what are you doing to address it? Or what are some places that people, or where have you gone for support to address it? And this is for both of you, right? Like in your career right now,
Hmm.
what's like a big issue that you're currently facing and how are you tackling it?
Oh gosh. So I mean, I feel like I could talk about that subject all day, but I'll try to keep it as short as I can. I mean, I know Verta, you and me, like we've had conversations about how like mental health is a big issue right now that I'm seeing not just for myself but for others in the space where, um, there between the constant harassment we all face, the and just like the struggle of trying to push yourself to be as good as you can be while also having to likely maintain full-time jobs and whatever else on the back
Mhm.
end of it. It's a lot of pressure to put on
Yeah.
yourself. And, you know, uh, I've been looking around for resources to help out with a lot of the stuff like that. And they're just, honestly, I'm not finding a lot. There's not a large space for esports players, and particularly women or just anyone in general who isn't like signed to a big organization that has access to esports psychologists and whatever else.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot for you to go to in terms of help for mental health. And so, I've been just constantly trying to spread the awareness of this to administrators and tournament organizers and everything. Just trying to point out to various Discord communities, like, hey, I know sometimes there's these people here who you feel like are maybe causing problems, but really they're just like trying to reach out for help from somebody. And
Yeah.
like, unfortunately, going to a streamer and like trauma dumping on a streamer or like a Discord
Mhm.
community isn't the best way to go about that, but there are people who are doing that because they just don't know where
Don't
else
have
to
another
go.
outlet. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I would love to see more outlets for people in those situations start to crop up, and maybe someone out there who's into therapy or psychology, or someone who's maybe watching this can be like, oh, that's a space I can fill.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just basically keeping on trying to put out the idea until someone picks it up and says, "Oh wait, I can actually do that." Because I personally don't have the ability to help out there, but I know that we need to keep on talking about it if we want to have people who can say, "Oh, that is something where I can help." Um, but I think one of the other big areas that I personally am struggling with is particularly in Rocket League. The esports orgs that are there um, and particularly outside of the United States. There's been plenty of conversations people might have seen on Twitter, whatever, but there's a lot of organizations who just aren't paying their players a living wage.
Right.
And like, I understand in terms of like the women's carball championship, where teams might not be willing to pay their players as heavily as they would pay like their RLCS team, for example. Uh, but paying a player $100 to $150 a month, like I don't understand what
Mhm.
the thought process behind that really is. Because if the thought process behind that is, well, that's all we can afford, I kind of get it. But if the thought process is we're trying to spend as little money on this as we can while also using this as a token for us in some way, like that's something I struggle to get behind.
Yeah.
And you know, if we really want to help these women in the women's esports scene start to make a name for themselves and start to actually be able to practice as much as they need to be able to get up to those upper echelons and start being able to compete with the guys at the top, you need to
Mhm.
be able to give them the ability to have that space and time to put in that practice and put in those hours. And if you're only paying them $150 a week or
Yeah.
a month or whatever, like then that's not going to be something where they're going to be able to have that time, because they're going to need to go do a full-time job. They're probably
Mhm.
also going to be streaming to promote content for your organization. They're probably
Mhm.
also promoting you on their social media accounts, alongside playing with your name above them. So like, why not be that organization to put that extra oomph into the into the
Yeah.
scene, and just be that organization to say, hey, we pay our ladies as well as we pay our men, uh, knowing that they might not be competing at the same level, but because we're trying to help them get there.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's one of the biggest things I'm seeing is there isn't the level of support needed to help women get to the point that they
Yeah.
are competing at the top right now.
Two huge things that you brought up: mental health, and I think the community around that, right? And how do we collectively come together around that? And then the other one was just about pay. I'm going to say pay equity really broadly, but also just like, what
Mhm.
does it mean to give someone, a living wage within a professional setting,
Mhm.
and how to make that, equitable across the board. I have so many other thoughts, and we'll get back to those. Um, Ahman Green, what things, issues are you currently like grappling with, and where are you going to for support on those?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one, kind of the same area as Freya in terms of mental health. I know with my players, talking to them on the daily, they're college students. Some of them are, first year college students where
Mhm.
they're fresh out of high school and now they're living on campus and experiencing the college life. And then you got, the sophomores, juniors, seniors that have been there and now working towards their graduate degree and or to their BA. And then, say dealing with, having to go to work, but then be a part of the esports team. So I've had a lot of sit down conversations with my players to get to find out what, when I can see them struggling in something either in the game or in the classroom, and we get there and say we have a little power session. If it's something to do with the game, like you hearing call outs wrong, or you feeling like your teammates are not talking to you in a certain tone, or they are talking to you in a certain tone that it probably bothers you. So we're getting off the keyboard and mouse and then having these powwows, which we've had at the start of the year. We had a lot of freshmen last year, and so those freshmen were the ones that were on literally on all one team, was on the Overwatch team, and just having to work with getting them to understand this is how you communicate to one another, respectfully and with tone. That you got to watch that and understand how that works. And then in game, who's doing what, who's doing the call outs, who's only going to do ult management or something like that. So being this understanding where all the guidelines are before a game gets going, and then when something does happen, then you already know, who is doing what then. So we had a couple lines of miscommunication there throughout the season, but sitting down and just sitting down with them and say, hey, let's just lay it all out, because the more and more the frustration builds up underneath and we don't address it, then it's going to be a bigger problem down the line. I'm like, so let's, get that out, flush it out, say things. You're going to feel real uncomfortable for about 5 minutes here, but we got to
Mhm.
say these things because when your teammate says something to you, it made you feel this way, and then you got that on your brain trying to play tank, and now you're trying to get in the right position, stay alive, and you're still frustrated at that moment. So it's just something
Mhm.
where you got to make sure you relay the message the proper way. So to each teammate, you got to understand how they can be talked to. this person likes this type of tone, and you got to approach them this way, and then you got to approach someone else a different way. So you got to understand it, because you don't want me playing against 2 teams. You don't want to be playing or 3 teams. Well, it'll be you, the team you're playing against, and then yourselves. Within that dialogue of being teammates in the team. So did a lot of that in the past year and a half myself. And then if it was anything beyond that, obviously I would talk to the school faculty to see who is our on-campus counselor to get people through that, because in the last year and a half we went from being isolated to now we're back in motion. A lot of that affected a lot of the college students around the space. Freya knows she has a lot of friends at the college level that during that time, some of it was good, some of it was bad, but overall, being told that you can't come off the home, you can't only communicate with people this way, affects a lot of people. And so even out of that was still some residual where I saw, a lot of the kids on my team consistently with their grades kind of here, and then during the end of the semester, they kind of just lagged out a little bit, because it takes energy. It takes the time, getting up, regardless of from your start time to your end time, you got class, you got potential work, you got esports practice. So, so I had to be real empathetic and understand all that, which I do, because I've been down that road. And just say, hey, if you got something going on, you don't have time today, there's no pressure here. Let me know. As long as you send me a message in Discord or text me on my phone, you have my number. Say, Coach, I can't make it in because of this, that, no problem. I said, just have that line. You have that line of communication. So then you don't feel uncomfortable when you have to tell me, hey, Coach, I can't make it today. I get it. If you give me, good information, and if you're even more detailed about what you have to do, I gotta go visit my mom, or she's not feeling well, something like that. As long as we know where you are, how you're doing, and are you okay? Keep that type of conversation up, and we'll dig into the stuff that we need to fix, between players and teammates. That's part of it too. But also, number one is we got to make sure that you're good here and everything else before we get to the game and all the other stuff that goes along with being I'll say amateur esports student.
And I think one of the big things that I'm hearing in both of these, one, it's just actually naming it, right? So we're actually having the conversation and saying, mental health is a spectrum, right? Just like everything else goes up and down. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's here, but we all operate in all of these places. So even me as Verta, sometimes I'm high, sometimes I'm low, but being able to create spaces, and right now we're talking about on college campuses, but I think this goes towards esports teams, all of the above, where you can tell someone, this is what's going on for me, right? And I'm having something happen. I would love for people to put in our chat, because I know we have a lot of people out there that will know organizations that can support and ideas of ways to support. And the other thing that I think conversation does is it allows you to actually role play some situations, because I think sometimes we think that we've got it all, okay, I figured it out and it's all in my head, but actually have never even formed the words to say it, right? And I think it's forcing people to really ask, how are you? And not just say fine, but no, say no. I noticed that you seem different today. Is there anything going on for you? How are you feeling? I use feelings wheels with lots of people, tell me which one of these it is, because there's something going on. So really role playing and actually creating spaces where people can have those conversations. And I think that you both are doing those within. And I think even what you said, Freya, we've done that with each other, quite frankly, right? Finding and connecting with other people who can also just even be a sounding board for you while you're going through any of those things, right?
Exactly.
I don't know, did either of you want to add anything, or did anything come up for you, just in the conversation that you want to highlight before I have to the next question?
I would love to add just one thing before next question. I saw Julia Jackson in the chat said, I feel like a lot of esports orgs and dev companies like to say they're doing a lot for marginalized communities, especially by making statements against bigotry, but I don't see a lot of actual work being done to support those communities and make people feel safe. And I totally understand that vibe there. And I can definitely say, even when my team was going to get picked up by an org, we had a lot of different organizations who were trying to pick up our team. And during the negotiation processes, there was a lot of those teams where it felt like they 100% viewed us as only a marketing token. And so obviously we didn't go with those companies. But I think that the biggest issue with that, and that whole thing even existing, is that there is actually a lot of those people in those organizations who have very good intentions, but they have no idea how to go about creating the space that people need. And it's one of those things where it's just going to fall on all of us to just be very vocal about what it is that we do need in the esports space in order to start having those opportunities be created, and have some of those organizations kind of see those statements and go, oh, that makes so much more sense to me. Thank you for explaining it. Like, even there's been Reddit threads that I've commented on and whatever, where you just look through and you see it's a bunch of guys talking to each other, trying to figure out, like, why is it that women's esports even exists? And then going through all of these different things, I was like, oh crap, there isn't a single woman in here who's trying to help explain this to them, or anyone who's actually in the space trying to explain it. So like, I had actually, on one thing in a Rocket League esports thread, I spent like 2 hours typing out this whole long thing explaining exactly why it exists, exactly what things we faced in the past, and why we need the women's esports space in the present. And it made sense to a lot of people, and it led to a lot of very healthy discussion. And we just need more people to actually step up and take that time to explain those things, so that we can have the opportunities created.
And what I'm going to add to that is that organizations need to pay people to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's
They
labor,
do.
and and you need to pay for it. And I think that this gets to the question too. It's one thing to say it and make statements, and we were all there. All of us were sitting at home in 2020. There were statements about George Floyd. There's statements, Pride Month, all the statements. And then what are your actions, right? And what does it look like? What do your panels look like? What do your events look like? And are you paying people to do that? So that's something that I'm going to say. And we really try to commit to that, but also call people out on that, right? I think it's really important. So I want to know, because this is a professional boot camp and people are here talking about their careers. I want to, or thinking about careers and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time, like a big mistake you made that was like a good mistake, and what did you learn from it? So like a time that you just messed up, you failed, you were like, or you took this risk, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, man, that's a good question.
I know.
Man.
I think I could start on that one. Yeah, give me a little time to think about it.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the times where there was like a bit of a mistake made on my end was actually when I was running Venus Vixens. One of the biggest mistakes I think that I made on that was actually just trying to expand out to other games that I didn't really know the atmosphere of myself or the landscape of myself. And I would really wanted to try and learn the landscape through just doing it, and I think that was just a major problem, because the fact that, like, as much as I tried to do my due diligence, there's a difference between observing something and attempting to fit in versus actually being a part of it and actually getting involved. And I think this kind of goes back to what you were talking about with like the George Floyd statements and everything else. It's like there's a difference between observing something and trying to comment on it, and actually being there, being in the space, being with those people, understanding what their needs are, and acting on it. And so that whole process of trying to push out into the PUBG space kind of led me to realize that there was a whole lot more to that space that I had no clue about, and there was a lot of things that I really had to learn. And I really appreciate all the ladies who were a part of that team with me, and all their patience and them trying to teach me as best they could. But I also feel like I had to apologize to them in a way of like, hey, I'm sorry that I couldn't provide exactly what you needed. I tried to do my best, but I just did not know it was this big of a thing. And I think that's going to be something that I carry with me into everything I do, of just, it's a good thing to have that mistake and have that little bit of a failure, because that's how you learn from it. And it was one of those things where now I've learned that there's a lot more due diligence that I do need to have in working with groups outside of my own space that I'm very familiar with and comfortable with. And I hope that others can see that and do the same.
Awesome. Thanks. Ahman?
Yeah. So I'll say it's going on with my situation with my team again. And we had good seasons. We had three of 6 teams go to the playoffs. And I remember, going back, thank you.
Yeah, that's big.
And so it took me back, while Freya was talking, it took me back to the fall semester this past season. And before the season starts in like from late July all the way through August, that's when the registrations from the different college leagues, ECAC, NASTAR League, NECC, Play Versus, when they all send out those. Here's your registration form. Upload your team, and here's the information for that. Email, Discord name, gamer tag, what have you. So I start going through that process. So me and one other coach, uploading all this information, and reading through the competition levels. It was just like one level. That was a little confusing in terms of like varsity, and then you had an open league and a rivals league. So I couldn't really tell like 1, 2, 3, which one is the toughest, which one is the hardest. But once the games got started, we found out right away. So I said our Call of Duty team, our Valorant team, and I think our League of Legends team were all on a varsity level of the leagues that we're in. And that level was pretty much where these teams have been together a long time, so really, really good. And so they noticed. The captains of the team kind of noticed the difference in their gameplay. And so for me, I took that, on my belt. I'm like, man, I should have read through the details of the registration a lot better to at least have you all in a fair area, because, it's JV, it's open, where it's just kind of peak guys and girls that does more casual level of Rocket League or casual level gaming of Overwatch. And then the next level up, it's a little bit more serious. But then that varsity level is that level that team is the pro team, or it'd be a pro organization if they were able to, once they graduate out of college. So I just took it on myself. I let the players know, I say, hey, I didn't read all the details. I missed it on me. I got it ready for next spring. I already found where the section I misread, but then know how to line you up in the competitive level league for yourself, and you compete. And that's probably one reason that we had, like I said, 3 to 6 teams in the playoffs, and even the other 3 that didn't make it were just one game win off, from the 4-3. But I say being honest with my players. When I mess up too, I'm human. That's what happens. Let them know that, and they completely understood it from the first session, for first semester. Doesn't feel good getting reverse sweeped and beat like that. But I'm like, that was my mistake. I should have looked. Now I know. But some of them took it as, we needed a butt kicking. It was yeah. See how good teams are organized on a recruiting match or Overwatch, how they set team, how fast they're playing, the communication. You could tell that it's all fluid. So some of the players took that, like, we know what good players look like in our game, in our level of gameplay, or what we're doing. So that kind of woke them up, and like, this is college esports ain't no joke yet. So you just got. So it's like some took it, so it determines how you want to take it and go from there, and how you want to use it for yourself moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's like with any, right? So thank you both for being open to, like, putting that vulnerability out there. And I think it connects to, I was listening to Chris and Maya did the panel before this, and it's just that it's also what humanizes us. We're not perfect, and we're not supposed to be perfect. But if you don't take the risk and go put yourself out there, then you've lost, then you've lost every chance you didn't take, as they say, right? Like, so like, right. Well, then what is it? So I really appreciate you sharing that. And also for everyone listening to, like, if there's something you want to do, try it, right? Like, go out there and do it. You can ask people, but like, just like totally do it. Right. So we don't have much time left. We'll go over to Restream. We're in Restream right now. My head's all over the place. We'll go over to Ritual Motion afterwards. But so you can answer either one of these in the last bit of our time. One is either what inspires you the most right now, or in general about esports and gaming, or a quote or saying that's important to you and why it's important to you. So just pick one of those 2 things. It's either like what inspires you the most right now in esports and gaming and why, and it could be a person even, or a quote or saying that's really important to you and why.
I'll go with a quote that I go by, and I learned it from Walter Payton, one of my favorite running backs, and he made a quote about him he said one time in an interview, he said, tough people, shoot. Come back to me.
You get it.
It disappeared.
It's right on the tip of the tongue. You'll get it.
Yes, I'll impact it. So Freya, go.
For sure. Definitely one of the biggest inspirations right now for me has been just seeing all the other competitors out there who are kicking my butt, like, and that kind of goes back to what you were talking about with your students having that little wake up call. And it's like, there's definitely a lot of times when there's all these competitors who are just really amazing players, and I am absolutely inspired by them every day. And they're also part of what inspires me to keep trying to expand the space and keep trying to bring more eyes into the space, because there a lot of those ladies, like, there's no reason they shouldn't be signed to an org right now. Like, there's no reason that they shouldn't be, that some of them shouldn't be on professional teams. And I think that if they were picked up to some of these teams and they had the right coaching and everything, like, we would be seeing them on the main stage of the highest competitions out there. Like, and it's one of those things where I think that people are kind of starting to get that notion when they start coming to seeing our competitions. They start seeing some of the show matches we do, or like some of the things where we start competing alongside some of the other content creators and pros and whatever, and just like some for fun tournaments where they're realizing, oh, hey, there's actually some of these ladies who are carrying this pro right now in this match that they're playing. Like, how are they not also a pro? And just seeing how much work and dedication they're all putting into it is a massive inspiration for me, and I just want to keep on trying to give them the same amount of work back.
Love that.
Yeah, same here. I love that story. So I got it.
Let's go.
Tough times go away. Yeah, tough times go away, not tough people. Just
yes,
continue to grind, because it's all a big grind for all of us. Not just the grind come from gaming, but the grind to talk about what we were talking about, that change.
Yeah.
Keep change moving, keeping the progress, keep asking the question, what's going on next? Keep doing that stuff, because we know that it's going to take all of us to do it in this space. And having these conversations like this is doing that, keeping that conversation going for everybody, because with everything that goes on, we already know it's a lot of distractions out there. And then people come time when it's time for that change to continue to happen, and you're taken over in this direction or in that direction, on this posting on TikTok or whatever. Just get all that out of the way sometimes, a lot of times. And only time you should be like get into it is when you're playing your favorite RPG. But outside of that, get to the real world and know exactly in your space what's going on. And if you can help affect that change and keep it going.
This has been inspiring. You're both inspiring to me. And we should do this more often. Yes, the quote that I'm going to leave everyone with is from Audre Lorde, who I adore. In our work and in our living, we must recognize that difference is a reason for celebration and growth rather than a reason for destruction. And I always want different people in my life, people with different stories, different backgrounds, different experiences, because it helps me to grow. And it's really just a celebration of humanity for me. So thank you both for being here with my little chat and conversation about esports. I want to thank you both. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this panel.